Hey, welcome back to another edition of Everything Football 62. I'm your host, Jonathan Big Tex Johnson, a.k.a. Uncle Tex, a.k.a. Professor Tex. Before we get started, smash that like button, subscribe to the page. Got any questions, comments, or concern, leave them down below. I greatly take them into consideration. I ain't one of them type of dudes, hey man, we all make mistakes and whatnot, or we can all improve and do a little better. This broadcast that I'm doing now is based upon something that I actually seen, I think it was like last weekend. And I saw where the great Chuck Foreman, who played for that of the Minnesota Vikings and whatnot, back during that of the 70s. He had an 8-year career. He played, and I think they were Hall of Fame consideration and talk and all that type of stuff and whatnot. And he was basically bringing up about, like, you know, as far as like, he was one of the first all-purpose backs. Okay? And he did everything. I've said this countless of times. I actually said this because I get 49. I love fucking with 49er fans about Roger Craig. And I always say that before, when you talk about the West Coast offense and all that type of shit there, was saying that how, yeah, Roger Craig was basically Chuck Foreman. Or Chuck Foreman was Roger Craig before Roger Craig. Okay, people want to say, oh, Roger Craig played football. Okay, he's a back. So I don't care about all that type of stuff. So, and it was some Hall of Fame talk and stuff like that. And I get it. And he was basically breaking up with Bud Grant and the offensive coordinator. Can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But how he was basically saying that, hey, you know, not a lot of jokers did what he did, which is true. We can have a debate about Lydell Mitchell. I'll bring that up a little later. Chuck Foreman was that guy. Let me say that first and foremost. Chuck Foreman was nice. That spin move was sick. Go out and check out any highlights you want to see. Chuck Foreman was that cat. Matter of fact, as a kid coming up, I used to think I thought him and George Foreman looked the same. I thought they was actually brothers for years until I realized that they wasn't. You know, Chuck Foreman was nice. However, as I tell you guys all the time, numbers don't lie and get emotional, people do. You'll have, and this is why I talk about a lot of times with homers and whatnot, that I've spoken about this quite a few times in my broadcast, is that they're looking to have some great teams because he played on some very great teams that he played on. And you're talking about a guy that played with Fran Target, then he played with Ahmad Rashad, Sammy White, Tingelhoff. He played with Ron Yari. He played with, guys that was up there. He played with Matt Blair, Paul Cross. Played with a lot of great guys. Those are some great Minnesota teams. Them guys coached by the great Bud Grant. Great. But when it came to that Super Bowl, them guys came up short. And I always take that back to a lot of times, if you go that many times and you don't come up, Alan Page, Jim Marshall, Carl Eller. All those guys, man. I mean, come on, man. I mean, we can just go on. Paul Cross. I mean, hell, I'm like Eller, Cross, Page, Eller, Cross, Page, and who else we got on there? Eller, Cross, Page. Yeah, you got 3, 4 Hall of Famers on the damn defense, right? You have, basically one on offense and whatnot of them 70 teams and everything. So we talk about on defense, whether it was Paul Cross, whether it was Alan Page, Jim Marshall, Carl Eller. Jim Marshall's not in the Hall of Fame. I think I've actually talked about that. If not, I may say something about that. Those are some great teams. Those guys dominated. They won the 4 Super Bowls in the 70s. Very good teams, excellent teams, well-coached teams, but did not show up in the Super Bowl, right? So I was looking at some stuff on Chuck Foreman's page. Guy was talking about it, like I said, like you said, he basically, may actually have it up here. Maybe I don't. I'm not sure. But as I said before, with him, with Chuck Foreman and stuff, doing what he, doing everything that he basically did and whatnot. Chuck Foreman, if we go to his stats, gotta tell you guys numbers don't lie, get emotional, people do. 6'2", 210, comes from out of University of Miami. You. Okay. And like I said, spin doctor. He had a spin move. That is nothing that I don't think anybody had ever seen. I'm a partner. He was into that spin move and stuff like that. You're talking about somebody from 73 to 77, I think it was a 5-time Pro Bowl, back when Pro Bowls actually meant something, and a 1-time All-Pro first team. In his 8-year career, he rushed over 1,000 yards 3 times, right? He was a whiz coming out of the backfield, excellent blocker, the whole complete back, complete. And I get the argument. But again, I tell you guys all the time, numbers don't lie and get emotional. People do. And we can't, when we start doing things like this, we cannot be homers. And when I say homers, I'm talking about some guy who was on a team that was good and everything, and they think everybody and their mama on that team deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And it's like, that's not the way it works. Or at least that's not the way it's supposed to work. Although it seems like it's starting to change somewhat. But in essence, it's like, it doesn't work that way. So I went through Chuck Foreman stuff. And again, even with Roger Craig out of 11 years had 3 1,000-yard seasons. His best season, aside from the 1,000 that everybody gets a goddamn to get a hard on for, and it's impressive, right? His best seasons is when he rushed when we went over 1,500 yards when he was Offensive Player of the Year back in '88. This is his best season. That was Roger Craig's best season. That was his coup de grace. That was his magnum opus, if you will. Not the 1,000, because even with 1,000, he led nothing in '85. But that was a hell of a feat. And really, technically, any back can do that if they systematically make it that way. 65 yards, 15, 16 games, 65 yards rushing, 65 yards pass catching, receiving. You can pretty much pull that off at any time. That's really nothing to it. They did the shit with Christian McCaffrey over there in motherfucking Carolina. Okay? And nothing. I remember when Ron Rivera said he's going to get 1,000. I remember Roger Craig saying that. They did that, and they went 4-12. I tell you, that shit doesn't mean anything to me if y'all not winning. Go back and talk to me about Marshall Faulk's time when he sit up there and did 1,000 or 1,900, and they went and won a Super Bowl, or they went deep into the fucking playoffs. Not somebody you trying to make. You can turn anybody into what you want. You can make a guy throw 5,000 yards all the fucking time in the league, in today's league, as a quarterback, and he's 4-12, but he threw for 5,000 yards and 23, 24, 30 touchdowns. Go back to that guy that used to play, I can't remember his damn name now, threw 35 touchdowns one year with Jacksonville. I can't remember that joker's name. Went to Central Florida. Somebody come up with his name. It hit me later on. And whatnot, he threw 35 touchdowns. It was garbage at the end of the day. And you're playing from behind. Back to Chuck Foreman. Chuck Foreman was that guy. There is no question about Chuck Foreman was that guy. Go back to another back in that time in the 70s, in my opinion, was the era of backs. A lot of, as that joker say now, a lot of dogs up in that joint, right? And a lot of those guys was extremely good. A lot of these guys coming from out of the 60s, out of high school and stuff, and college, and then coming into the 70s and everything like that. Those guys was like that. So Chuck Foreman was one of those guys, right? He was one of those guys, and everything. But my problem with Chuck Foreman is why he's not in the Hall of Fame. You're talking about 3 1,000-yard seasons. And then on top of that, you only played 8 seasons. On top of that, never won that championship and disappeared in the biggest game 3 times in your career. Let's do this. So Chuck Foreman, 13 games. 22 killing bad, I suppose. 860 yards, 7 touchdowns in playoff games. Pretty good. 3.8 average. Caught 45 balls, 447 yards. 7 touchdowns in rushing, 0 as far as passing is concerned. They never won a Super Bowl. All those Vikings teams, whether it was from when they played Kansas City, which he wasn't on that team because he was still in college, but 74, was it 74? They played 74. They played another time against the Steelers, and then they played 74 when they played the Steelers, if I'm not mistaken. I think they actually played Miami and whatnot. So, and then of course played the Raiders in Super Bowl 11. I said 10 on one of my last broadcasts, but it's actually Super Bowl 11. Where, especially when I talked about Jim Marshall, and people wonder why Jim Marshall's not, and he played 20 years, good defensive end. He was a really good defensive end for a long period of time, but that's the game where that man did not make a tackle. If you don't make a tackle as a defensive end, I'm sorry. We can't go there. But anyway, back to Chuck Foreman. So with Chuck Foreman and what he did, what he was able to accomplish, all-purpose back, one of the first. Now, we can go back and talk about Leroy Kelly, but for the most part, the 70s, that was the golden era of backs, in my opinion. Somebody might look at it a little bit different. That was the golden era of running backs. Now, let's do this. Let's go to the all-decade team. Okay? If we go to the all-decade team, you got the Juice and Walter Payton, first teamers. Second team was Earl Campbell and Franco Harris. I don't have anything wrong with that. And I'm going to tell you why I don't have anything wrong with that. OJ, that's a league in itself. OJ, not only was OJ Simpson the best back in the league, he was the best player in the league. Okay, let's establish that right now. He was the best player in the league. Okay? Let's go ahead and get that right now. He's the best player in the league. He was the face of the NFL. He was the face of goddamn what do they call Hertz Rent-A-Car. He was the face for Black American men. He was all of that stuff. But on the football field, he was that guy. 5 years in a row, 4 years led the league. Okay? MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, all that. 9 in the box. You knew it was coming, and he still got it. 2,000 yards, 1,800 yards, 1,500 yards. I'm like, the stats speak for themselves. Walter Payton came in the league 75, 76, 77, 78, 79. Put up 4 extraordinary years in the 70s. 1390, 1852, 1395, 1610. That's why he's in there right there with Juice. And he came, like I said, didn't see much time as a rookie. He still did 679. But by then, he just opened up a can of whoop ass and just did what he did. So he deserves to be there. Second team, we go to you go to the Tyler Rose. 78, 79. 1450, 13 touchdowns. 1697, 19 touchdowns. 2 years in the league. Now, for giggles, for shits and giggles, we're going to do this. And I love doing shits and giggles. We're talking about 1450 plus 1697. That gives you 3,147 yards in 2 years. That's literally damn near 1,500 yards per year. Right? Literally. 13 and 19. That's 32 touchdowns. 15 and a half, 16, 16. 13, 13. Let me see, 6. What is it, 13? Let me see. 32. 16 touchdowns a fucking year. That's what puts him in the second team in only 2 years of playing. Keep that in mind because I'm going to come back and play with that a little bit later. Then we can go over to Franco Harris. Came in the league in 72. A year or so after, he was there a year before that of Chuck Foreman. 1055, 1006, 1246. 4 championships in that run. He was consistent. So you're looking at around in his heyday from 72 to 1980, or I'm gonna say to 79, 80, whatever, 789 yards or whatever. But he went 1,000 yards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. At that time, because by this time the NFL is 50 some odd years old, 55, 56, 57 years old. What he basically did at that time was unprecedented. And he got 4 rings out of that decade. So I don't have any problem with the all-decade team. Nor should you have a problem for historians out there. Now, if we go back to Chuck Foreman, this is what he did. Compared to the guys that I just talked about, it's not even close. I'm sorry, Viking fan. Shit, it's not even close. I'm sorry, Mr. Foreman. And I fuck with Chuck Foreman. I could go to Lydell Mitchell. I can go to Lydell Mitchell. Let's go to Lydell Mitchell. Another nice back in the 70s when the Colts had that little three-year run from 75 to 77. 1,193 yards, 1,200 yards, 1,159. He's catching 72 balls out the backfield back in 74. 71 and 77, 620, 544, 545. Look at the yards as an all-purpose back. Right there with the Chuckster. Right there with the spin doctor. Now, when he did what he did, Baltimore 77 after they had a Pro Bowl year, rushed for 1,159, only 3 touchdowns. So you're looking at somebody that only has 30 touchdowns over a career. Spin doctor had 53, if I'm not mistaken. Receiving touchdowns for Lydell Mitchell was 17. He asked for more money and whatnot, and Bud Grant and the Vikings brass wasn't budging, and they let him go. He ended up going to San Diego. Had a pretty good year in 78, 79, 80. Those was wash years. He was out of, even though that offense was explosive. I've talked about it several times on my different podcasts. Okay, on my different shows. So I've talked about that. But he didn't get it done. Very good back, versatile back. The Burt Jones teams and whatnot. So I go back to Chuck Foreman. Let's go back to Chuck Foreman. 5,950 yards, 53 touchdowns. He had 23 touchdowns receiving. This is somebody who was 586 receiving, 691, 567, 308. Even some of those yards there, I mean, Lydell Mitchell might come a little bit better. But Chuck Foreman was a first-team All-Pro and a 5 years straight of a Pro Bowler and of an All-Pro first team in 75 when he went for 1,070 and 13 touchdowns. And he led the league in receiving, if I'm not mistaken. 73, 691, and 9 touchdowns. And could have come up with could have actually had the record of 23 touchdowns, but was taken out, got hit in the eye with a snowball, and Bud Grant pulled him out and stuff like that. And then he lost the NFC title of rushing and all that other kind of stuff. You got to look that up. Chuck Foreman was that guy. But his numbers compared to the guys that I just named are pedestrian. Sorry, guys. Pedestrian. That's why Chuck Foreman, even though being that of a trailblazer, his numbers just do not add up. They don't add up. I'm sorry, they just do not add up. They don't add up. They don't add up. And I get it. And they were one of the first, and he was one of the first guys that was multi-fat, block, run, pass patterns, everything that you want. Wasn't that guys like LaDainian Tomlinson, guys like that of Marshall Faulk, guys like Thurman Thomas would take that torch to the next level and become Hall of Famers. But them guys also had numbers. This is a fucking numbers game, guys. I sitting up there talking to a guy the other day on one of my casts. He was up there talking about, it's hilarious that I was talking about stats and proving who between Brady, and that's the one that I did, first 7 years and stuff like that. I'm like, how else are you going to determine who's what and who's what and who's not? Who's who and who isn't? Numbers. Now, if Chuck Foreman played on a team that was committed to the run, because, again, this is the 70s. This was about running the rock. They ran the fucking rock. And Chuck Foreman could run the rock. He could also pass catch. He could also block. He was multifaceted in what he did. But also, you know who else was multifaceted in what they did? On sorry football teams was Sweetness. And I didn't really appreciate Sweetness until later in life. And how he played on a bunch of bum sorry ass, and it wasn't until the twilight of his career, around 82, 83, 84, where he finally got some goddamn help. You look at what Sweetness did, and I talked about it earlier, and look at what he did in his 30s. Guys like Chuck Foreman, guys like Lydell Mitchell, those guys was finished by the time they hit 30 years old. They were done. Even the Juice. So this goes back to the conditioning and the workout that it takes to be a champion. Now, you look at what Peyton did at age 30, 14-21, 31, 16-84, 15-51, 13-33. And even at 87, and even at 34, he did 533 in 12 games because he missed 4, probably due to injury. You go back and look at the receiving yards. Not a whole lot. I think his best of all time was in 83 when he did 607. So from just looking at everything and what he basically did, 4.538 out of 75, 13 years I think in the league. That's almost 350 yards receiving out the backfield. He could do that. He did all of that stuff, but his mainstay was running the rock. Chuck Foreman in that particular offense did not run the rock. Lydell Mitchell in that particular offense did not run the rock. It was about running the rock in the 1970s. No matter how multi-purpose you may have been, could have been, however, whether it was Larry Brown, you had John Brockington, you had a lot of great guys in the 70s, man. A lot of guys, man. A lot of them. It's about still running the football. And Chuck Foreman did not put up enough yards to do that. Even if you brought in the multi-purpose back at that time, they're still looking at those yards as a rusher because you was drafted as a running back. Therein lies the difference. That's why Chuck Foreman is not in the Hall of Fame. That's the reason why Roger Craig is not in the Hall of Fame. You guys did not have enough rushing yards. You had a couple of years, like I said, Roger Craig's 1,500 or something yards. People don't even talk. You know what's funny about that shit? People don't even talk about that. They always talk about that 1,000. They never talk about his fucking 1,500 yards when he's Offensive Player of the Year. Go look it up. They don't even talk about it. It's not even discussed. Everybody has a hard on for that 1,000, which seems impressive. It's not impressive to me. What's impressive is that 1,500 and that Offensive Player of the Year award. That's what's impressive to me. I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm saying that's what's impressive. You know what? Now we'll look it up real quick, real quick, like Roger Craig. I've done this, and I know 49 fans hate my guts, and I love it. I love it. They hate my guts. His 85 season, 1,050, 92 catches for 1,016 yards. He had 9 rushing touchdowns and 6 receiving touchdowns. They got bounced in the first round, ladies and gentlemen. This is the year after they won the Super Bowl against the Miami Dolphins. And they got bounced by the Giants in the first round. In the wild card, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody that played 10, 11 years, I've said, 1,050, 1,502, 10 1,502, 9 touchdowns. It's only all-pro first-time season. And so even with the 1,000, he didn't make all-pro first team. Even with the 1,000, he didn't make all-pro first team. Didn't make it. 1,502, 9 touchdowns. He caught 76 balls for 500. He led the league in total yards from the catching and from receiving as well as rushing. 2,036 yards, and he was all pro first team and offensive player. That was his coup de grace. That was Roger Craig's magnum opus right there, and he had one. You want to throw that other one in there? That's fine. That's all he had. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. Where's the 14? Where's the 13? Where's the 16? Where's the 17? Roger Craig's last 1,000-yard season was at age 29. Age 23 and 24. Oh, he's playing full. I don't care if you play fullback. I don't care. That's not the issue. That's not the issue. I don't care. Yards are yards, man. So at the end of the day, that's why he's not in the Hall. That's why Chuck Foreman's not in the Hall. That's why Lydell Mitchell's not in the Hall. That's why guys like Larry Brown's not in the Hall. Larry Brown got the MVP season a while back. Skins always talk about this here, and I did a show on that. Four-time Pro Bowl, 2-time All-Pro. 70, he rushed for 1,125 yards. 72, when he was going to Super Bowl, I believe, 12, 16, 8 touchdowns, 32 catches, 473 yards. He was league MVP in 72. AP Offensive Player of the Year. It's coup de grace, man. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 seasons, 2 1,000-yard seasons. 2. That's all he had. OJ ruled the roost. 4 years out of 5. Other guy, I can't remember his name, out of the damn, we'll look it up. We got time. Shit, I'm off. Got plenty of time. Hell, let's look it up. Shit, we ain't got nothing else to do. Otis Armstrong went for 1407 for the Denver Broncos. He went for 1407. He had that 1 year first team. He's still first team with OJ. 1407. He rushed in a year he went from 73, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Another 8-year career with 4,453 yards. He had caught lightning in the bottle. 1407. Balled out, did his thing, caught 38 balls for 405 yards. He was like that. Let's see who was, because hell, he was damn near the Offensive Player of the Year as well as Snake got that. Snake had a hell of a year. He played second and was all-pro first team along with O.J. Simpson. Never to be heard from again. So between O.J. and them 4 years where he led the league, and then you throw in Sweetness, 76, 77, 78, 79, 4 years, 5, 9. What we talking about, man? Those two guys literally ruled the roost from 1970 to 1979. From that particular standpoint of view right there, you got O.J. rule the roost for a 5-year span, but 4 years leading the league. Peyton led once, but he had great seasons in 76, 77, 78, 79. That's 4. OJ 5. That's 9. You could throw Zonka in there as a fullback or whatever, however you want to look at it and stuff like that. John Brockington, Larry Brown, all those different guys and whatnot. But even with those guys that I just named, the 2 major ones dealing with that of O.J. Simpson and that of Walter Payton. And if you get down to it, and goddamn Earl Campbell, bruh, Chuck Foreman don't fit up in that. I'm sorry. Earl Campbell had over 3,000 and some yards in 2 fucking seasons, 78, 79, as a rookie and his second year. Chuck Foreman don't have numbers like that because you got to go against who you played against at that particular time. Who was your contemporaries? And your contemporaries, you don't match up to your contemporaries. Even with Roger Craig in the 80s as an all-pro, second-team, all-decade back, between Riggins, between Dickinson, and between Sweetness, Roger Craig numbers does not compare. Chuck Foreman's numbers or Lydell Mitchell's numbers does not compare to those guys of the 70s who ruled, whether it was Franco, whether it was Franco, Earl, Walter, Juice. His numbers ain't that. Great back, give him that. But he was not in a system that fed him the ball 285 fucking times a game running. I ain't talking about all the other shit. Because it was about rushing the football. That's why Chuck Foreman's not in. That's why Roger Craig's not in. But specifically because of this broadcast, that's why Chuck Foreman's not in there. That's why Lydell Mitchell's not in there. And we go back to Chuck Foreman, because he, like I said, he was done at age 30 going to New England. And his last productive season was in 77 at age 27. 1,112 yards, 6 touchdowns. He caught 38 balls for 308 yards. He still went to the Pro Bowl. Still productive. But his best years was done. And then after then, that was it. That was it. The Vikings team started going down the tubes, and he was going down there with them. That's why Chuck Foreman's not in the Hall of Fame. That's why Chuck Foreman's not in the Hall of Fame. Has nothing to do with anything else but that. That's why he's not in the Hall of Fame. Okay? Having said that, like I tell you guys, there's no GOAT, there's no greatest of all time as long as time's still going on. Like I tell you guys all the time, numbers don't lie and get emotional. People do. You guys have a good one. This motherfucking shit.